All right. Hello, Keller ISD staff. We're live, hopefully, online with YouTube and using Zoom in the background so you can kind of see what we're trying to figure out here to communicate with you best. Before I jump into everything that we're doing, I just want to say first that anytime we'll have any kind of conversation with you, it's going to start with celebrations because we have plenty of opportunity to work on the work and to work on some of the things going on in our lives, in our schools, and the community. So we're going to focus on positive, and then we're looking at celebrations, and then we're going to jump into the agenda. So first thing I want to celebrate is our staff. We have so many amazing people right now that have been working around the clock just to formulate a plan for how we're going to manage this closure that we're dealing with, this long-term closure. Right now we're looking at 2 weeks, and this first week is certainly a week of planning. It's a week of figuring out what this looks like so that we can best support you as teachers in our community, so that you're then supporting our parents and our students. The next thing, and this is a fairly sizable celebration, and most of you probably already know, but the STAR test has been canceled. Governor Abbott has declared that this morning, that we will not have to deal with the STAR test this year. That certainly brings in some other things that we'll talk about later in this agenda, but maybe collectively across all of Keller ISD, a big woohoo for those who are on this stream to say that STAR test is canceled, because I know that takes a huge load, not only off of the shoulders of our teachers, but the shoulders of our students and our parents. We've already heard a lot about that leading up to this point. So at least know that the STAR test has been canceled. I want to also talk about how we're taking care of kids with our feeding program. Sodexo has been amazing, along with our security team, our healthcare professionals. We are just blessed to have the kind of people we have in this district to take care of first needs first, which is the needs of our kids and their well-being. So today we opened it up with 5 campuses. And I will celebrate because I just got this data point. Let me look real quick, and every now and then I'm going to look down to make sure I've got my stuff off my notes. We took care of 976 kids today for their lunch. And it was just, I can't tell you how much that warms my heart that we're able to take care of our kids even during these times when we're not really quite sure what's up and what's down right now, but we're at least able to take care of our kiddos' needs. So 976. Now the next celebration is after they did all this hard work and they figured all this out across 5 campuses, the superintendent decided to change gears on them a little bit, and they have been gracious to figure it out, but we're going to add 6 more campuses. So if you haven't seen that, not only are we going to serve at the 5, but we're going to add 6 more to make sure the proximity for our families is a little closer to the neighborhoods where they're at. In the event that they have a hard time getting to a particular campus, it'll be a little bit closer now. So if you haven't seen that yet, I know that's probably on our website. In fact, I think I've seen some screenshots of it. So that's out there. Please make sure you're communicating that to your parents and your community members, and we will see what kind of feedback we get from that. But at this point, moving forward, we will be ramping up to 11 campuses where we will be able to feed our kiddos. Okay, so you know that I've talked a lot about the Twitter in the past, and jokingly, and said, it was a good opportunity to get some things. But I will tell you that right now it is a great place for sharing, for learning. I am seeing so much collaboration, not just within Keller ISD, but really across educators across the country, because everybody's in the same situation. Sharing ideas and sharing thoughts and sharing encouragement. So I am going to say one more time that if you have not plunged off the deep end into the land of Twitter, I would highly, highly recommend it at the very least. Just be sure you are on there. And as I have defined certain people, you can just be one of those followers. You don't have to tweet. You don't have to come up with anything that involves 280 characters, but just be sure you're on there and just taking a look, follow some people that might help you out. I've been trying to put stuff out there to help people and help people understand what's going on. But it is a great place, and absolutely celebrate with our hashtag celebrate KISD. That is a great spot to continue to be positive, continue to talk about the great things going on in Keller. as we move forward through this time. All right, so before I jump into the agenda, here's what I want to be sure that you hear first and foremost. This is called a disclaimer. There is absolutely no playbook for anything that we're doing right now. There is nothing that has been rewritten, been written in the past to say, hey, when all the schools shut down for a certain amount of time countrywide, here's what we're going to do. There are no classes. We haven't worked on this. We haven't game planned for it. So the thing that I probably will say more than anything is that while we had some pieces of the puzzle that we were working on really just to help our kids out in this electronic age, that was for small bits and pieces. It certainly wasn't for wide scale pre-K-12 instruction. So we are working on it right now. We're figuring out, and that goes back to how great our staff is. But we're going to mess up. There will be times that I'll say something, and probably within 30 minutes or even before I'm off of a conference call like this, something might change. We're going to be human. We're going to allow ourselves grace. We're going to allow ourselves to make mistakes and to figure it out and get better and be open to amazing ideas, because there isn't one single person who is the keeper of all the great ideas. And we're going to do exactly what we all already try to do, which is what's best for kids. It's just certainly in a different platform right now. So that's my first asking for grace before I jump into this agenda. Make sure that we've got everything we need. So probably the main charge going forward, and especially for this week, and then again going forward, because there are going to be some unknowns, is to take care of yourself. You have to make sure you are keeping yourself healthy, that you're keeping your family healthy, that you are making those connections, because we talked a lot leading up to this point about social emotional learning, and we've talked a lot about that connection point with our kids, and we have an amazing foundation already because of that. We have an amazing foundation in our district about how we're going to best take care of our kiddos, and that does not change. In fact, it just gets ramped up even more now. So my ask for this week, as while our staff, our C&I team, they're working on lesson planning, they're working on an amazing group of resources for you, so that you're not having to, as a teacher group, plan everything in isolation. Let them do that. And what I'm asking of our teachers and our principals is reaching out to your community, reaching out to your kids, and just check in. If at the very least, just check in with them and make sure that they see your face. You can record a video on your phone and send it to them just to say hi. But just be sure that they know you're still around, and they know that you still want to connect to them. And yes, there will be some instruction going on. We're going to be asked to provide some instructional support, even with STAR being canceled. But we do want to make sure we're easing into that to some point. Now, there's an exception to that. There are some teachers out there right now who already teach online classes. There are some teachers out there who, frankly, they use Canvas so much, or they use something else, especially secondary level, that honestly, to some extent, the students kind of expect them to already be reconnecting academically. If that's you, then good, go ahead. And if that's what you feel like you need to do, but don't be pressured into thinking you have to be at that point already. If that's really not where you're at, that is not my ask. That is not my expectation. We are going to forward you the resources you need in order to be comfortable in this kind of a new way of thinking about digital instruction. What I want to do next is talk a little bit about some things that I've been learning from our commissioner. So every day, myself and probably 1,000 other people in the state of Texas are on a conference call with Commissioner Morath, learning a little bit about what is going on across the state of Texas as it relates to public education. Obviously, we got a big update this morning about testing and how that impacts things. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. I'll start with testing first. So STAR testing, obviously, as I've already said, that was canceled. That was a big celebration. We had a question that came in saying, does that also count for EOCs? And yes, EOCs and anything related to STAR, if it was connected in any way to STAR, accountability, all of that is now canceled for this year. But there is a ripple effect to that. I mean, there's a ripple effect into kids graduating, and if they needed to pass a particular EOC to graduate. There's a ripple effect to kids who might be freshmen and needed to take the Algebra 1 EOC this year because in 4 years they plan on graduating and having that EOC under their belt. All of this is going to be managed through our graduation committees that we can make individual decisions and determinations on. The TEA is going to give us a very wide berth on making some of those decisions. So this impact of cancellation for 1 year actually has a 4-year plus ripple effect out, because the expectation that I heard this morning is that they won't expect us to try to go back and retroactively make kids take and pass these tests that they did not take this year. Going forward, obviously, it'll still be in place unless something else changes. But for right now, that's what they wanted us to address. So we're going to get a lot more guidance on that. That's not official on paper, and I think our guidance should come out at some point later this week from TEA. But he's not going to be that specific about some of those things unless he knows that's going to be written down. So I'm confident in the cancellation. I'm confident in how the EOCs would impact graduation. The EOCs would impact even the future graduations for kids. But how the actual instrument and how the process will work, we're just going to have to learn once TEA sends out some of that guidance. So that's all again, good news. But it is a bit of a ripple effect that we'll have to contend with later on. The other piece that I want to address, because there is an article that I saw floating around from a journalist who was sitting on a call with Commissioner Morath yesterday. And I want to address it because I want to be as transparent as I possibly can with everybody who's listening, our staff who's listening. There was a point of time where Commissioner Morath mentioned, hey, if you shut down right now, great. Here's all the reasons why you should stay shut down for a little bit, but anticipate a longer than what you think shutdown. We aren't there. We aren't making that decision yet. We are relying heavily on Tarrant County and Tarrant County Health and Judge Whitley. Right now, we're in day 1 of a shutdown, so we're not ready to make any kind of changes to our decision making. But what we are doing right now, all the planning we're putting in place, we are being prudent, and we are trying to work towards making sure that, hey, if we're back in school on March the 30th, fantastic. We've done a lot of great work, and maybe that changes the way we think about how we instruct kids. But if we're not back on March the 30th, then we can have a lot of great work that's going to go forward just as we are right now. So I don't want you to think that we have our heads in the sand. I don't want you to think that this is all just going to magically go away if we're hearing things in the news that it appears to be ramping up. We are planning as if this is going to be a little bit of a longer haul than what we originally had canceled for. And then we're going to think optimistically that it won't be, but we're going to plan accordingly because that's the smart thing to do. So I want to make sure your mindset is in the same spot that ours is, that think optimistically that we'll be back in school, but also have in the back of your mind, so what might this look like if this is a little bit longer than a 2-week shutdown or an issue. Report cards, progress reports, guess what? It's on hold because we haven't figured that part out yet. I know we were coming back to a grading cycle, and frankly, right now we want to provide you the lessons to move forward. So once we figure out how the whole report card, progress reports, all that stuff's going to work, we will certainly let you know. But it is not something that was top of mind, meaning a number 1 priority. The number 1 priority was taking care of you, taking care of kids, and we'll deal with paperwork and progress reports and report cards, in a few days once we get some of this other stuff figured out. So, but we'll keep you posted once we know how that's working. Access to buildings. I know that you've been communicated with from your principals, supervisors, that access to buildings is pretty much locked down, and there's a reason for that. If we're not supposed to be together in larger groups or even smaller groups, as the news was even referring to today, then we don't need people with access to buildings. So if there is an absolute need for something, I think that already went out. You were already given kind of that window of opportunity. If there's any emergency or something that maybe was forgotten or anything like that, this is not an all call to now go back to your principal and say, oh, by the way, you need to work through your campus supervisor and your campus leader or department leader to make sure that it is okay to be back. And then someone's going to have to go up to the campus and meet you, because that's just part of our process of what we're trying to do to keep people healthy and keep people safe. So I want to address that point because that actually came up as a question. Payroll. hey, guess what? We're still paying people. We are going to still have payroll, payday, still the same days that it has been scheduled. If you're not sure when paydays are, go into K-Cloud, find that information on when paydays are, but nothing changes from payroll. And more specifically, our non-exempt people. And I know that as part of my transparency, I have been pretty clear about the fact that our salaried people obviously will continue to get paid. We've been assured by the state, by Commissioner Morath, the school funding is going to still continue. They've given us waivers on the instructional minute piece. We'll just have to apply for the waiver. The 90% rule we've been given a waiver on for kids. So we know we're going to be okay on the school funding side. The tricky part is obviously the hourly worker piece, because people have to clock in and clock out. And right now they're not clocking in because they're working remotely. So as according to our policy, we've already authorized the first 5 days being out. So this whole week, we've already authorized that payment so that no one loses out on any funding if you are an hourly employee in the district. Where that anxiety pops in is because there is a legal requirement for us to then go to the board to extend that 5 days, which happens on the 23rd. So next Monday night during our board meeting, it likely will be a very small group of people. It might even end up having to go to kind of a video conferencing board meeting, but we're still working on those details. That will be on the action item for the board to act on. It's a resolution, not only for pay, but for a lot of different things in these kinds of situations that we just need some new authorities that the board would allow us to work through. So here's what I need you to hear me say though. If you're an hourly worker or an employee, I have had trustees reach out to me and very, very concerned about that and very concerned about making sure we're paying our people. So I don't have any illusion that this is going to be a problem. It's just something we have to do. And it's something that I couldn't promise until I knew we had that vote. So if you're nervous, if you're worried about it, take a deep breath. Everything is going to be all right because of what the feedback I've gotten from the trustees. But I wanted you to know how that operational piece actually worked and not just assume that that you already knew that. So that's that part of payroll and when everybody's going to get paid. So Human Resources would like me to give you some information. Right now, we're working on determining long-term substitutes and who are the long-term substitutes in the district. ASOP has been shut down because obviously we had people prior to spring break putting in some personal days or whatever else, for the days or weeks after spring break for a lot of different reasons, not obviously with coronavirus issues. But we had to shut ASOP down because there were still people interacting in it and it was getting everything all confusing. So we're going to have to reopen ASOP, but don't jump back into ASOP and for whatever reason, like put in a personal day because this you're not, you're working from home. So just avoid ASOP for right now. So while we figure out the long-term sub piece, because we want to be sure that if we have any long-term subs out there who's the teacher of record for our kiddos, that they're also being compensated and taken care of accordingly. But we've got to make sure we've got that identified. The Wellness Center. The Wellness Center will remain open, but it's only for acute appointments. So if you have a non-acute visit reason, if you have something that you need to go to the Wellness Center, but it has nothing to do with any of these, whether it's symptoms or you're not super sick, that's all going to be handled telephonically. So please be sure you're operating in that way at the Wellness Center, and then certainly acute appointments will be seen at the Wellness Center. More information is going to come from them later this week, but just be sure that you understand that that's how we're going to operate in our Keller ISD Wellness Center. I've talked about the board meeting. It is going to be if we meet in person, it is going to be a very, very, very scaled down board meeting. No recognitions, no awards. It's just going to be put some action items on there. There will probably be a report or two just to make sure people are up to date on some of the things we're doing here. But let me just put it this way. Unless just stay away. How about that? Because we're not supposed to have more than 50 people in a room. And so we're trying to make sure we're managing that and social distancing. And it's going to be really weird looking anyway, just to have the meeting. So everything I will ask you to do is, if you're curious about the board meeting, it'll be uploaded like it always is. So watch it later and I'll see it there. K-Cloud is obviously still available and has a lot of resources on there for you. In fact, there was a new tile constructed specific to COVID-19. So inside that tile, there's an FAQ page. There is some employee resources inside there. So I would highly recommend that if you haven't been on KCloud, that you get on KCloud, you find that COVID-19 tile, and it will give you the information that you need. And if it doesn't, please make sure you're reaching out to your supervisors to find out, let them know what all information you need. And then they'll direct it on to some other people in the district, and we'll make sure we get you the information, because we don't want people in the dark on some things. And even though we might not always have the answers immediately to some of the questions, we're going to get you those answers. We have an internal FAQ already being built. If you have not seen it yet, we have our website set up for frequently asked questions, or just in general how we operate under these conditions. So if you haven't gone to www.kellerisd.net/coronavirus, that is our site where all of the stuff is being collected. So you can get on there, you can go to the FAQs, and those will just continue to be built out as we get those questions. So I'll say it one more time, www.kellerisd.net/coronavirus. And that's where we're collecting a lot of our information. But ultimately, even though you can see that I'm obviously not in my office, well, in my office, but not like my normal office that's on 350 Keller Parkway. This is business as usual. We are doing the work of getting help for you and getting help for our kids. We are going to be answering emails. We're answering phone calls because they've been forwarded to our cell phones. We are Zooming, video conferencing like crazy just to keep people healthy and still get the work done. But all of these tools that I have kind of alluded to, those are all tools that are already kind of built into the system already. You already all have access to these tools. You have access to Zoom, you have access to Google Classroom, you have access to Canvas, and all of that stuff is going to be given out to you later if you don't already know how to get to it. But there'll be some things coming out from technology that help you understand better how to get to these things and how you might be able to use them for instruction, or just honestly to connect to people. I know there's going to be a ton of people in our district who just want to see someone else's face because you miss them, and that's okay. So that's the reason why we have video conferencing, to allow you to do that and to catch up and to plan and to just make things great for our kids. Let me scroll down and see if there's anything. I know we had some questions originally that was received. So there was like a block of questions that came in. It had to do with our role over the next 2 weeks. I think I've talked about that, where this first week is really about us just figuring out what this looks like, and then the next week we start to re-engage our kids instructionally as that makes sense. And so that part I've discussed. There's a block in here about formative and summative assessments, grading periods, entering grades. Will we have grace if we need more time? Let me just explain this to you now, and I think you probably have already kind of gotten the hint to this. We absolutely will be changing whatever we have to change in order to make this make sense. So don't bog down in number of formatives, number of summatives, when are our grades going to be due, what do tests look like? Because as of today, as of literally 72 hours after we learned we were going to have to do this, we don't know a lot of those answers yet. So if you keep the main focus, as they say, the main focus, and that's taking care of yourself and your kids, and just we're going to do this a day at a time together as we march forward, then we'll figure out some of those other pieces later. But it is certainly a totally different way of thinking about how we're going to define some of these things. One question: how does the closure affect those who are retiring if the district ends up closing for longer than anticipated? We are still on our calendar. The state has already told us we're going to be able to do a waiver, and we don't have to worry about instructional minutes. If we miss anything, we're not going to have to push into July to go to school to make up our days. So because we're going to be providing instructional support to some level, we, to my knowledge, unless something breaks from Austin on that, this really doesn't impact anything in terms of people who are planning on retiring. The year's still going to end when the year's going to end, and you'll be able to go off and enjoy life and wonder maybe, well, dang it, I should have retired last year because then I wouldn't be dealing with all this. But it is something that I don't think is going to impact you. is there anything we can do to help the district? Man, thank you so much for sending this question in. We have had an outpouring of people wanting to figure out how to help, especially on the food service side. They were wanting to discuss, are there ways that I can help my students, my families? I will tell you that there are some rules and some laws around the food service side. So I don't want you to feel like we've ignored you. But unless you're employed by Sodexo and you go through some certain trainings in order to be a food service person, we can't just have people come up and just start handing out food. So that's an amazing thing that you've done to volunteer your time with that. But the reason why it hasn't been put out there more widely to take advantage of it is because we're not allowed to. But as things come up, I will absolutely make sure people understand that everybody is in this together and we're all trying to figure it out collectively. But I will also say, and I will also encourage that as you have ideas, talk to your supervisor, talk to your principal and say, hey, what if, what about, how can we do this? And we're, like I said, this is, in my little tweet storm that I made a couple days ago, we are literally building the airplane while it's in the air, and the more people that can help us with that, the better, because it's amazing. We've got amazing people, but doesn't mean we can think of everything. So I absolutely make sure you're part of that. I did address, there was another question that was, the state said there's no star. What about EOCs? I've addressed that. EOCs were part of that, and then we'll just have to deal with the graduation pieces, as they come. But TEA will give us some of that guidance at the end of this year, or this week. How can we offer distance learning to special needs students that require one-to-one, hand-over-hand assistance to complete most tasks? Fantastic question that we don't know the answer to yet. Again, this is the special ed side of this. The federal government has given us a lot of waivers for some things already. Special ed, as we provide instructional support, we've got to provide the same instructional support for our kids that are special ed. They deserve it. What does that look like? We don't know yet. And that's what the special ed team is working on. They're working hand in hand with the C&I team right now to figure out what does that look like. So as you have ideas, as you talk to friends in other school districts, as you hear what other people are doing, we don't have to corner the market on all the new ideas. We can steal ideas from people because some of the best ideas are taken from someone else because they figured it out already. So we're open to whatever it is we think we need to do as it relates to how do we fulfill IEP minutes? How do we have ARD meetings? Those are all pieces of the puzzle that we have got to determine this week and then moving forward, obviously. So we're working on that. I know Amanda has been feverishly working on that with Dr. Koster on how this works with special ed. Certainly isn't anything we're ignoring, but it's also something we don't have an exact answer for yet. And I need you to be okay with that, not having the exact answer right now, because we're trying to figure out what that looks like. Here's one. If KISD shuts down for the rest of the school year, will paraprofessionals continue to get paid? And again, that will come back to that resolution that we talked about. So if this goes beyond the 2 weeks, the resolution will give us the authority to go beyond just this initial shutdown. So we're not gonna have to go to the board every time we have to extend something. So just please know that it is our intent to continue to engage our employees to make sure that they are helping out staff, helping out our kids. And it is certainly our intent to make sure that we continue to pay the people who are the employees of Keller ISD. Well, hang on. I have just moved down into another part of the Google Doc, which apparently has a few more things in there. So I'm going to wait for 1 minute and make sure, let me get through this. Star Alt has been canceled along with all things Star. So if it hints, breathes, sniffs, Star, it's canceled. So TELPAS, I will say this, TELPAS was one that came up because every district's a little different. And TELPAS is used in part to help identify ELLs and LEP kiddos. So we're going to need some more guidance from the state on TELPAS because some people were right in the middle of it because the window was open for so long. Some people might be done because they might be a smaller school district and they already had it done, but there's other districts and other places across the state that certainly aren't done yet. So we have to wait on guidance for that. But in terms of STAR and in terms of, March, April, May assessments, all of that is canceled. How do we address students who do not have tech at home? Right now we're working on tech at home. What we're working on is a way for our parents to communicate to the district what they need. So if technology is one of those things, then we'll be sure we figure out how to get someone some technology to do some stuff. But again, we don't know that yet because we don't have that feedback yet from the parents. But that's something technology is working on in terms of just like a simple form that we can just put out there, whether it's food, whether it's technology, whatever it happens to be. We want them to be able to ask us for those resources, and then we can turn around and take care of them. Sophomores who needed to take a retake, are they released from having to pass it also? I'm going to assume that you're talking about EOC retakes, and that's all I've got right now. So if you're talking about EOC retakes, all EOCs are canceled for this year. And then it will be up to our graduation committees to make the determination if those students, whether it be this year as seniors or in the future years, have completed the requirements of the class. But it will not. Again, this is the guidance that we have this morning that's not in writing. So once we get that guidance in writing, we're going to know more about it. But my interpretation of what I heard today is that because of this cancellation, that's the ripple effect. So anything that involves this year's testing, we can now leverage our graduation committees in the future to graduate our kiddos. Do we know anything about AP testing? Well, sort of. Obviously, the state has nothing to do with AP testing. The state has nothing to do with industry certifications. They're working with both of those entities to figure out what that looks like. College Board, I read something, in fact, on Twitter, and I retweeted it, that they're working. Actually, I was kind of surprised by this, but College Board's even trying to figure out how can kids even just take these tests at home, which I don't have any idea how that works. But they are working on all kinds of different options, even from a College Board level. So certainly for all of our AP teachers out there, or teachers who have kids who are in AP classes, those are pieces of the puzzle College Board is working through. Again, this is not just Keller ISD, this is not just Texas, this is nationwide, and they're trying to figure out the same issues. So they're working on that, and as we know more, then we will absolutely let you know more. Does anyone know if we will still be charged for keep? That is a fantastic question. I don't know the answer. But we'll keep that question, and we'll make sure we get back to our staff on that, because that's a great question that has not bubbled up yet, but I'm glad you asked it so that we can tackle it for you. We were told at a staff meeting we were not supposed to contact paras outside hours. Yeah, so this is all changed now, right? So we operate when we're actually in school. We operate where we're not supposed to work paras over their allotted time, because then we dive into having to pay overtime, which gets very expensive. That's all changed. So we are going to have to work a little differently now. So I'm just going to give you an example. Some of our campus secretaries, specifically principal secretaries, will have VPN access, meaning they can log into their the things that they need at school. And we're going to have to track their hours when they're logged in. In fact, we've turned on time clock online so that they can clock in and clock out online, even though they're working from home. So the directive of, hey, we weren't supposed to contact paras outside of hours was under the impression that we actually had normal hours. And now, I think it's Monday, but I'm not sure. Our hours are a little bit goofy at the moment, but that's all changed. But we still have to track hours. They still are going to have to clock in and clock out, because we can't go over our allotted time. But certainly, if they're working from home, then that's going to be something that's beyond just the standard, 8 to 4 time frame. An extension to the educational grant money, ? With a big please exclamation point. I certainly, we'll talk to the Ed Foundation. I know that we'll be working on some sort of timeline, and we haven't talked to Kamika yet, but I can guarantee you if she's not watching this, then she'll watch the replay of this, and we will figure something out for the Ed Foundation, because everybody is in a different mode of operating for sure. Will the transfer fare be made up? I know we had to obviously cancel it. I have not received any updates yet, and nor did I expect an update yet of when we will have that rescheduled or what that even looks like. Right now, from an HR perspective, we're working through some of these other issues of, just determining pay and long-term subs and staffing for next year. So yes, we're still going to have a transfer fare of some sort. I don't know what that looks like, though. It could be that we have a bizarro looking Zoom transfer fare, but that part hasn't been decided. But absolutely, it's not just canceled forever, because I know we have, especially at CTI, we have some people who would like to look at different places because of our new plan and the fossil rich feeder pattern for next year. So it's not being ignored, but I can't tell you exactly what it looks like yet, but you certainly are going to have that opportunity. And then there was a follow-up about those who've applied. And again, when I get an update from HR on how we're dealing with transfer fare, then we'll let you know. Can we get tech help remotely by submitting a ticket? Yes, you can. In fact, I was just heard that this morning in our Zoom cabinet meeting. Joe Griffin let me know that all the technicians are on the ready to go. And if you submit a ticket, then you absolutely can get some tech help from a distance. Might be a phone call to walk you through it, but you can absolutely get some help from a distance. If we have a district credit card from a trip that we were on at the beginning of spring break, are they going to ask us to bring it up or keep it until we return? Okay, so I'm giggling a little bit because, district credit card. So first, don't use it anymore. Thank you. And then, we'll just hang on to it for now. We will have a skeletal crew up at the office, mainly because we still have to deal with payroll. We still have to deal with some purchases and stuff. So if you don't mind, and I don't know who wrote this, but if you do have anything like that, just please be sure, shoot them an email. They might want to just set up a time just for you to go hand it off and run out and keep your distance of 6 feet and do not shake hands or cough at anybody. But just be sure that you've given them a chance to do that. And they might say, just keep it until we figure this out. And, so stick it in someplace safe. Will we be meeting like this more often? Yes. The goal of this is to keep you informed. And so it won't be daily, but we will do some things like this. It might be a couple days a week where we just continue to keep information in front of you. Because I know that all of this can be highly stressful, and hopefully what this does is provides you some information and insight. Even though I don't have all the answers to everything, I'll continue to work on getting you those answers. And yeah, absolutely, this is going to be a good way to do this. Are custodians and maintenance workers included in pairs who will get paid? Yes, absolutely. Yes. So we're good with them. Are the kids going to get information about how we're still going to teach them and doing the work? Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll be creating a community communication, for lack of a better term, for our families. We'll let them know what we're doing now. We've already I've hinted to that for those who have seen the video yesterday, but there'll be more specific emails coming out from us to help you as teachers. So we'll front load that, but absolutely, you can, as teachers, you can talk to them and let them know, we're going to be providing you some instructional support, and we're going to keep engaging you. And it's going to look different, and that's okay. It's going to look different. But it's something that we'll work on setting out first, and then you can either follow that up. But that's the reason why I said at first, just connect and just connect to our kids and create that reconnect after spring break, so the kids know that you're still around and that there's still a face on the other side of the computer. Transfer window was supposed to open tomorrow. Is that still happening? The answer is yes. Apparently we're getting some live Q&A here. I have an incoming kindergartner. Will the transfer window still be extended? Okay, so now this is for student transfers. So again, yes, it will be, the transfer window is going to open, but I don't know about extension of transfer windows. Again, those will be pieces that we'll get for you, whether it's in the Q&A or whether it's back to you in terms of an email. But we'll make sure we tackle some of these for you at a later date. Child nutrition workers get in trouble if they're unable to go in to do lunches while we do not have child care. Okay, so one of the things that I talked about, and that's a fantastic question. So one of the things I talked about with our team is that I'm fully aware that many of our employees are going to be working on child care issues as well. This is time to be family. This is time for us to come together and help each other out. So I have asked our team, who still have custodians and maintenance workers, and I can't speak for Sodexo because I'm not over Sodexo, but I have asked anyone to take that into consideration, that if they're working on childcare issues and needs, that the people who aren't are carrying the load a little bit more. So specifically to food service, that's going to be a Sodexo thing. I don't mind talking to them and finding out what kind of plans are put in place. But that's, just know my heart on that, and how we're trying to move forward to take care of our people. If we haven't met our PD or EQ hours requirement for this year, our online option is still available. There are going to be all kinds of great things online on K-Cloud. In fact, there's some even new requirements that we have to meet. So remember all those fantastic videos at the beginning of the year that we have to watch? I think there's even like new ones now that the state's rolled out. So, in all of our time that we're trying to pass along the way, it'll be there and you'll have an opportunity. So yes, there'll be time for not only for PD and EQ time, but there are going to be some things we're pushing out just because we would have anyway, even outside of this bizarro time that we're in. Do the pairs have to clock in with the time clock? So we'll give you some very specific information on that for the pairs. Once that's opened up, and I don't even know right now if it's even active, but once that's opened up, what I'm going to say is that if you are if you're doing school work, yes, you have to clock in and clock out. But let me be clear about how you understand that. You don't have to clock in and clock out for the purpose of being paid. You have to clock in and clock out for the purpose of not going overtime. And so that's a little bit different way of thinking about it normally. So this is not, well, gosh, I only clocked in 20 hours this week because we didn't know what to do. So that doesn't mean you're going to get paid for 20 hours worth of work. The point of clocking in and clocking out is to make sure you're not going over your hours. It's not to pay you for the hours worked, because the hours worked, we don't really understand right now in terms of how that will work with support staff. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, we'll follow up, but just know that the time clock piece is not intended to be based on paying you for the hours you've worked. It's really more managing that upper level of making sure you don't go beyond the time you're supposed to go beyond. Is the Hudson grant process going to continue as normal? That's a to be determined. Communication will go out in the coming days regarding how we're proceeding with Hudson grant. So just kind of put a pin in that. We'll get back to that one. Keller ISD Health and Wellness Fair scheduled for March 28th. I bet you'll figure that out. And if anybody just heard Health and Wellness Fair, that's canceled. So we'll move on from there. Casey's Kids. Oops, wait a minute. The answer is yes, it's canceled. But everyone, I've got some wildly fast communications people working on this Google Doc that I'm reading, and it's like moving around all over the place. Casey's Kids will reach its $40,000 fundraising goal, and it's currently at $25,000. So even though like our fund run and everything had to be canceled, Casey's Kids is still there and still needs support. So please make sure that if you want to donate, or the people that were saying, hey, how can I help? That's a great spot where you can help, is Casey's Kids. How will this affect those of us on probationary contracts and our TTESS? Okay, so TTES, summatives, we just talked about that this morning. We have discussed the fact that some of our summatives, especially if this is more of a long-term issue, is going to be just like this. It's going to have to be Zoom. It's going to have to be teleconferencing. And we're just going to have to work through some of those things. So we just literally had that conversation this morning, and more details will come out about how we're managing evaluations. But just know, along with everything else, when you're in this kind of a situation, the normal rules of the game are no longer normal. So we are going to work through and try to make sure we make all this work for you. How are deliveries to schools being handled? Well, they're being handled by sitting in the warehouse. So hopefully the warehouse will maintain enough room as deliveries come to us. But for right now, that's what we're tackling it just like we do if we're closed down for the summer. Things get delivered, we hold on to them. When we resume normal school, I love the positive thinking. We will currently schedule trips for student competitions as well as PD reasons be canceled by KISD leadership, even if hosting organizations don't cancel. So I can't answer that because it's a pretty hypothetical moment. And mainly because we don't know what the health conditions are going to be. So what I will say is that I know UIL is working on trying to figure out potentially how to reschedule if and when schools open back up. So that's going to be a piece, but until we know more, until we actually get back to the opening of school, I don't want to commit to saying we will or we won't. It's just going to have to be one of those things that's going to have to evolve as we get information. If we are a para who has a position that can't work from home, would we still be included in getting paid if this goes long term? I'll say one more time. Paras, hourly workers who are already employees of the district, you're going to get paid. So just, again, take that off your plate. And if the question is, or if I confused you because of the whole time clock thing, the time clock thing, again, was for the purpose of keeping you from working too many hours. So just don't worry, don't stress. As soon as we get through the board meeting on the 23rd, we'll be there. But the time clock thing online was intended to make sure that there was a limit to how much you could work per week, not are you working per week. So we'll tackle that, and just know that if we do need your help, we'll ask you for it. But for right now, we're managing your pay accordingly. If we can't enter our last purchase orders, can we keep our general funds next year? That's a great question. No. So the way funds work is one, on any school budget cycle, it doesn't matter whether or not you're in this kind of bizarre shutdown moment. This is accounting and this is our audit. And so we are still on a July 1, June 30th fiscal year. So once that fiscal year ends on June the 30th, it automatically, it starts to get reconciled. So as much as I would love to say it will roll over, it won't roll over, because that's just not how school funding works. So that won't roll from one year to the next. Will KISD admin be putting into place summer national competitions be allowed? And again, I'm not going to address any future competitions because I just don't know the answer yet with where we're at from a health perspective. Do you think there will be more of a chain reaction now that Richardson and Dallas are now closed indefinitely? So I just heard that. So you guys must be on the news as I'm talking. Why aren't you paying attention to me? So yeah, in fact, I'm over here getting pinged by email or text messages to my other side here about some districts to the east of us are saying indefinitely, and they're going to reevaluate in 3 weeks. All I can say is we will do what we can do, and it might change our timeline. It might not. We collectively, as a Tarrant County school system, districts in Tarrant County, made our decision based on the recommendation of Tarrant County Health Department. So if Tarrant County Health Department gets us back on the phone and says, hey, you got to extend to whatever date, then that we're going to follow their recommendations, because they're the experts and we teach kids. So we're going to lean on our local health department, our health officials, to help us understand better what we need to be doing. I would say anything prom, graduation, it all is going to be 100% dependent on whether or not we're open. If we are not open for business, or if we're still getting recommendations or frankly requirements to not meet with any larger than 250 or 50, then you can go ahead and answer that question. So if those things expire, then obviously the larger events can happen. But if those recommendations or requirements don't expire by the time some of these things are coming up, then things are going to look a lot different at the end of the year. And again, that's just me being transparent and me just trying to make sure you know what's going on and just the reality of it. I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just telling you the way it is. And if we still have that requirement to limit the number of people together, then it's going to apply to anything that goes on. Oh gosh, Kinder Roundup, no idea, but we'll keep track of that, and we'll be sure we get you some information on plans for Kinder Roundup. We started being canceled with summer intervention classes and testing also be canceled. So it depends, I guess, on the summer intervention classes and testing. I don't know yet, because it's this year's. So let me say this: if the summer intervention and testing are a result of kids' results from this year, then everything that kind of attaches to results from this year, if the testing didn't happen, then everything that attached to that also won't happen. But if for some reason, if it's a holdover for something else, then again, that's going to be the guidance that TEA is going to have to give us, that we're just going to have to wait on. Mail deliveries, FedEx, UPS. Again, this is my assumption that even when we're on break, it all goes to the warehouse. So all that stuff will be collected in the warehouse. And I have a chat here. Let's see, someone being funny. Where can you find extra toilet paper? Well, listen, here is what I have seen on the greatness of social media and on Twitter, is that if you take a paper towel roll and you cut it in half, you have 2 rolls of toilet paper. So I'm just saying, you know, if you got plenty of paper towels, it might not be very comfortable, but you cut it in half, you got 2 rolls of toilet paper, and now look, I'm solving problems for you. Okay, so I think my expert crack team from another location is telling me to wrap it up, so I'm going to wrap it up because I have talked for, good grief, almost 50 minutes. There's a lot of information that we just kind of threw out at you. I hope it helped. I hope that you see that we are doing our very best to try to figure this stuff out. I know it can be frustrating when you don't get a specific answer to something, and I hope that you just keep allowing us some time to figure out those answers for you. But if you need to rewatch it, this link will be posted somewhere, and we'll make sure the staff either that weren't on can see it. But again, if you've joined us, thank you very much. For those that joined the recording piece of it, rewind whatever you got to rewind to re-listen to something. But this is Rick Westfall signing off from our first webinar, not our webinar, video chat to our staff. So anyway, have a great rest of your, is it Monday? Monday. And we will continue to give you information, and don't forget to check in with your kiddos. Have a great night.